everybody, Composing Gloves here. I'm wearing a hat, and today we're going to be jumping into Slicex. It is the sliciest slicer you'll ever see as far as sample chopping goes. There are lots of great options for this, but Slicex is one of the best ones by a long shot. Super intuitive, CPU easy. Let's go ahead and jump into just some examples. So this is part of the FL12 effects series, meaning there will be more videos on this. This first video is just going to be some practical things I do with it. I'm not going to explain every single step. I'll go over everything in more detail in succeeding videos. So let's go ahead and I'm going to show you practical and then a couple weird sound design things you can do. So first, let's grab a drum loop. So I'm going to go into Composing Gloves and we're going to go to Hi-Hat Heaven, which is a sample pack on my website. And I'm going to grab a loop. And right now, this loop is at 128 beats per minute. And you see that it's got a grid behind it. I can slice it according to this grid. So if I want quarter notes or whatever, I can slice it on the grid. Or I can have it do what it just did and auto detect where the transients are. This can sometimes work great if your audio has very clear transients like this one does. Every now and then, well, not every now and then, a lot of the time, you probably won't have really clear transients. And as a result, your slices may get a little messy. So you may want to manipulate some of this. So you might come in here and delete this one and select a range and add a new one by clicking this add button. Let's say that you want to change the way it slices when you load it up. You just right click here on this little auto slice guy and you can set that. So anyways, you get the idea. We can change where the slices are and brush it up, make it a little prettier if you have like clicking or something weird that you don't want. They have a lot of declicking options. So really cool ways for that. But right now it sliced it for us, which is really handy. So instead of doing this all by hand, if your thing is not lining up with your song, you'd have to go and chop it up. If you want to leave the pitch out of it and preserve your transients and move everything around, and then you might need to do envelopes to make it sound nice. We just averted all that extra work, literally like 20 minutes worth of work. Bam, right there, done in like a second, if it worked out. If it didn't, you might need to brush it up a bit. Also, if you do know the tempo of your stuff, you can not right clicking it, F2, and specify the tempo, and you can actually change the sample rate with resampling, which can produce some interesting side effects, and change the tempo, and also tell how many beats are in your thing, and that will help it a great deal because it's got another feature that allows you to dump so these markers are called regions. It can dump these regions as a MIDI score so that it will ideally play back each sample mark the correct amount of time, so that if it was a quarter note, it will be represented as a quarter note here. If it was an eighth note, it will be represented as an eighth note here. But it's got to have the correct amount of time. So in this one, I believe it's 8 beats. So to help it out a bit, I'm going to come in here. Oh, look, it's changed it to 8, which is really great. They also have these rounds because sometimes you get weird decimal stuff. So, okay. And so what it's done is it's represented that here. And you see if I play it back, and our new tempo is 176. So before it was pretty slow. If we played it here, I can also audition it here at its tempo. But our tempo of our song is 176. So very quick. And now if I play it, it should fit. So you see, voila, a really easy way to do that. Now, let's say that I want to change the stylistic way it's played. Without getting into too many details, each one of these things can receive a separate volume envelope, each region. And so, well, there's 8 options of volume envelopes you can have. But this is the articulator. It's called something different for a reason. We'll talk about all this stuff later on. But let's say I want to use a volume envelope, and they're all assigned to 1 by default. So I just mess with 1, and I'll just make each one have a very fast attack. Well, an instant attack, and then a very, very fast decay. So I'll chop off like some of this extra stuff, creating an even sharper percussive sample. And I'm going to play it back our pattern. So you can see some of the implications there. Okay, so that's how that works. By the way, if your view looks kind of weird, maybe you're missing stuff, you can change the view by these little tabs up here. I almost always leave all the settings on, but if you don't, that's how you do that. And you have a little keyboard down here. This is the keyboard. And instead of a traditional keyboard, it's a little pattern step editor. And you can click to hear your individual regions, and you can also right click to hear them. You also notice that they mark the names of each one. And what we can do is we can actually change the marker name by right clicking, go to rename, or just hit R for rename and just name it like hat 1, something that's maybe more useful to you. It can be very useful with vocal chops or instrumental chops. You'd be like violin part, cello part, or whatever, chord, violin chord stab. And you'd have useful stuff. So when you're on your piano roll, you like know what you're touching. You can also layer 2 decks. I like never use this capability ever. I just haven't found a reason really to, because why wouldn't I just do that in the playlist? But if you have a reason, drop it in the comments. I'd like to see it actually used creatively. It's just sort of a cool thing that they added, or it came with it. So, okay, cool. We have this. We're able to rename the markers. We can even change the pitch of an individual region. We'll look at how to do that later. Another way to do that, though, that's a little easier to wrap your head around, because you've probably used it before, is slide notes. So we can actually specify a slide note to slide this pitch too. So we say, oh, it's at this pitch, and I want it to slide up by an octave. So you do 12. Right now we see that it is on a C, and I happen to know this is also a C. And so we can put a slide note there, and this would change this note. Oh, let me make sure it's a slide note. Putting that there. And because this slide note is so short, if it was long, and let me do this with a vocal sample. So let's grab a vocal sample. I'm just going to go to default here, and let's go to the gospel folder. Vocal chops sound good when... Let's grab that guy. Okay, cool. So you see that those sound good, and vowel sounds do too. So O, A, E, any sort of consonant sound when you're doing vocal chops doesn't sound that great. Like, who wants to hear the TH sound, or like no one wants that in their track. So like that's a great one. That's an O and A. It's they're going ow. So that'd be a really good vocal chop sound. So let's go ahead and name this one so that we could see it clearly over here when we want to work with it. So we're gonna right click it and name it ow. Ow. Oh yeah. And you see there it is, ow. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna pitch shift this one. This, I don't know, the other method is really easy, but this is like you've probably used this 100 times. See, I don't have them named, so I'm just kind of randomly searching through here. You get a snap on that one, it could be useful. And so right now it plays it back. Let's go through our pattern. Oh, these are all slide notes. I'm like, what the juck? Why isn't it working? Turn the slide note power off. So let's just do that. Okay, cool. So yeah, you might want to be aware of that. If you zoomed in, we would see the little triangle. So let's say, okay, now let's add a pitch transposition up. And you see it bends it up to the note we specify. And if we can make it longer. But most of the time, it's probably useful to have them pretty short. And so we can put a note here. These are just very, very fast slide notes. Basically, it sounds like the note immediately because it's so fast. We go down. So anyways, you get the idea. We're able to change the pitch with slide notes, which can be a really handy dandy deal. Now, let's go ahead and move over. I'm not sure if I said this, but you can right click to audition, or you can click down here. So that's vocal chops. Let's go into a couple crazier features, right? So you could do, most of what I do is somewhere in the realm of messing with the pitch or messing with the drum loops by changing where just markers are and changing how I write the data. Like that's it. Let's say that I have that drum loop. Let's go back to hi-hat heaven here for a second. Composing gloves, hi-hat heaven. Okay, now let's say that I want this rhythm to be changed the way it's exported here without having to go in and rewrite everything. Well, they give you a couple options. If you right click, you can go to like reverse it. You can play it, go in the other direction. If we play this. So that's pretty handy. Another option you have, if you right click, you can do a groove where you do swing. So this is kind of cool too. So that one didn't make that big of a difference, but sometimes they can make quite large differences. We can pitch up on the beat, which is kind of funny. So just interesting things you can do that. It's sort of a little more intuitive. You can also run custom scripts, which I think is wicked cool. A couple of these shut down FL on me, so be a little careful when you come in here. So if you want to do non-real-time processing, that's an option to you. I'm not going to do it right now. They have like things like bit reduction, stuff like that. So, okay, really cool. And you can actually write your own in Pascal if you know Pascal, and there was another option. So it's really kind of a nifty deal if you're really into that sort of a thing. Now, let's go into another weird sound design deal. We can incorporate scratching, and I'm going to do this using an all-purpose envelope. I'm not going to go into details on how this works exactly, and this is a hi-hat loop, so this might not be the best example, but I'm going to write in some data using this envelope, and then I'm going to go into my tools dialog and select scratch envelope, and now you see it's changed the data a lot. And what I basically did was I changed the speed of playback and position of playback. So you can get just really weird results with this, especially if we gave it some tonal stuff. Let's also take a look at blur. So this is really cool. So what I'm going to do is let's grab a gospel, another one of those gospel samples. Let's go over to G. Okay, cool. I think I grabbed the exact same one. Okay, and let's go ahead and do the stretching with this one. Or the scratching with this one. So we can come in here, and then we go to our envelopes, and we go to scratch, and we can get like way crazier, right? Maybe do something, just a big up and down motion, and do scratch. So you just get weird stuff. I mean, if you do this with a little more direction, you could come up with some really, really cool bass rips, just some interesting ways of mangling things. Another thing you can do is if we come in here, they have a blur setting. Now, this is basically also in Edison, but it's really cool that they included it here. You can go to blur, and what this does is if we use an impulse, I'm gonna make a sharper impulse first, just to give you an idea of what's going on here. So go to single curve, and this is what it sounds like with blur. Okay, so that's pretty cool. It basically sounds like reverb, but it's not. It's different. I accidentally hit accept and set instead of so I'm gonna hit preview instead of preview. Let's change the impulse. So you see, this is so cool, especially with rhythmic samples. So you can get some weird stuff out of there as well. And you can also add in, of course, just regular convolution reverb. And you can select your impulse sample and do all that. That's pretty self-explanatory. So cool stuff. Just showed you a couple of the options you have here. We're going to be delving into what these things do in a little more detail. Probably stuff you haven't seen people do. I've never seen anyone use the all-purpose envelope before. And I watch a fair amount of tutorials too. So if you have any questions, let me know. We're going to be diving in again in more detail on what these things do in succeeding videos. And have a blessed day.